Education Matters this Tuesday. The matric results season can be a high-pressure time. And for those learners who didn't perform as well as they'd hoped, the support they receive is crucial. From handling the initial disappointment to exploring alternative educational options, like perhaps a higher certificate, parents and guardians have a vital role to play in the weeks and months ahead. Let's unpack this leg of the story now. Michelle Williams is the head of academics at the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy for Girls. Michelle, it's great to talk to you. And as we celebrate the matric class of 2025, we've just spoken to a learner who got 7 distinctions. This is all wonderful news, but there are, of course, those learners who didn't perform as well as they'd hoped. And for them, this is an incredibly difficult time.
Absolutely. I think for every student who's out there, there's always the feel that for many of them, I could have done better, I should have done better, and huge feelings of guilt and sadness, leading to even further ones of depression and anxiety can accrue. So what we really need to have a look at is how parents can ensure that our children don't identify themselves with this result and rather move forward knowing that their future journey is not completely over because of one result.
Look, we don't want to downplay the importance of matric results. They are incredibly important as learners, young people, start this next phase of their lives. But it is not the end of everything if you haven't achieved the results you wanted, or perhaps even if you failed.
Yes. So luckily in South Africa, there are many options available to our students or our learners who haven't achieved or who have failed. The Department of Education has been very intentional in creating different pathways and different journeys for those students. And in fact, the minister said yesterday, don't lose hope if you don't achieve the results you want. So the Department of Education does indeed have what they call the Second Chance Matric program. And that's available to learners who didn't perform well. And it involves a number of practical measures that they can take. And these include rewriting, remarking, and in fact, even joining the Second Chance Matric program. So the door is not closed. I think, Michelle, what's really important is for our parents to know that we need to support our girls and our boys, our children, as strongly as we can so that they don't feel defined by a piece of paper, by a result. We're not all cut out to be academics. We're not all cut out to be doctors and engineers and accounting. The country wouldn't exist without the guys who do all the other things, who fix our cars, who ensure that we have electricity, the ladies who do our hair, the people who work in manufacturing goods. So let's not assume, and let's support our children in understanding that you don't have to be an academic to be a success. Yeah. There are many other ways to prove your worth in society.
And we had a discussion yesterday on the channel actually about why so many pupils, students are fixated on university as the next step after matrics. And there are a range of reasons. I suppose status is one of them. But then this morning, we spoke to a young man who's receiving a reward for, an award, for one of the top performing achievers in one of the provinces. And he talked about actually pursuing training as a plumber. So for any of us who have ever had to call a plumber out to our homes, we know that they are incredibly expensive, and it's a business that is sure to thrive. These are the kinds of things that our pupils need to start looking at as what they can do with their futures.
I agree with you 100%. You are quite right about one thing. When you call the plumber, you wait in the queue for the plumber to have the time to get to you, and you pay the plumber what he's asking, because nobody wants to live with our toilets bubbling over, etc., etc. So we need to explore the journeys available to our students in technical areas through TVET colleges, for example, or FET colleges. places where we come out of there with not an academic qualification. As you say, status is really connected to being the first person in a family to go to university or from a particular school, but it doesn't ensure our success in the future. So I think as a country, maybe we need to change our narrative as well, Michelle, that it's not about the person only who goes to university. Who's the most successful person who went to school when I went to school or when you went to school? Often not the one who went to the university and got the traditional degree. So yes, 100%, let's encourage our students, make different career pathways, do what you're good at, not what somebody else wants you to do. And maybe that's also a message for parents. Let's not expect our children to follow those traditional roles of becoming the engineer or the doctor, because that's the assumed way that we can be a success after school. And all we do is put more and more pressure on our kids who may not be that way talented or inclined.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not just about status for the students, it's actually more about the parents, right? We want our children to do A, B, and C.
Yes, we want to speak with our friends, with our neighbors, because our neighbors' goddaughter or granddaughter or niece or whoever has just qualified as a whatever. So we want to be able to talk the same story. And maybe, yes, as you say, let's just put that behind us. Let's care about our kids, about what they're doing, and make sure that they're happy and we're not putting too much pressure on them. And I think you can see that I'm coming back to that sort of as a stream of expecting too much from our kids and not expecting what is realistically possible. There's always a plan that we can make.
So the next
for our
2
kids.
months, Michelle, sorry for that. The next 2 months are going to be crucial, right, for these families who haven't achieved perhaps what they set out to do.
Yes.
So we need to calmly look at the situation. We also don't want this interview to be about toxic positivity, right? It is, of course, a blow.
Right.
It's a huge disappointment if you haven't performed, and particularly if you failed. So we don't want to downplay that. It is a huge disappointment. So while we acknowledge that, we talk about then what are the next steps for the next 2 months. Let's plan how we're going to tackle that. So give us some pointers, Michelle, for parents out there. One of those things could be rewriting a paper. What are some of the other options there, and how do we go about it?
Okay. So there are a variety of options open to our parents and to our students, regardless of whether they wrote a matric under the auspices of the DBE or under the IEB. And one of the first things open to us is if something as a paper, practically, and we're talking practically now, is as a particular paper's result or subject's result just seems out of kilter with what we expected, the option exists to have the paper remarked or to have the paper rechecked. And then there are very strict deadlines involved in that application process. So check all the information that has come with your matric results if you're a matric student. And if you need to apply by a certain deadline, make sure you do that within those deadlines. So once that is done, we await those results. And once the remarks are out and the results of the remarks are out, the option then will have been communicated on your matric certificate as to whether you are eligible for a rewrite. And the rewrites generally are around May and June, and then again at the end of the year. So check those. If you're a returning matric this year, I think you register through your school. And if you are a past matric student who still wants to rewrite, you would register through a website or through one of the district offices. So again, all the information is available readily online and in the information that will come out from the matrics. And then finally, the option remains to embark on the Second Chance Matric program, which is exactly what the name says. It's the second chance to do matric. And that is probably one of the final options. And then if you decide that going down that route is not the way for you, start to look around and investigate other options for further study. But as you say, without the toxic positivity, the thing is initially to calm down, to review our options, and to wait for a little while for it all to sink in and for us to decide what the best way forward is, and then to move on with that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great advice. It is not the end of the line if you haven't achieved the results you set out to achieve, or even if you have failed. Michelle Williams giving us there a range of options, from having your paper remarked, doing a rewrite, embarking on the Second Chance Matric program, and of course looking into other options for further study. There are options available to you, and hopefully parents and guardians can be there to give you the support you need. Michelle, thanks very much indeed for your time.